Hello po, nakikita niyo na po. Nakikita na po ba?
Yes.
Opo.
Yes.
Okay, so from section D sa lesson 2 po, hypothesis testing. So the problem in section D, the average weight loss for sample of people who exercise 30 minutes per day for 6 weeks is 8.2 pounds. So dito po in this problem, makikita po natin ang 8.2 pounds which is the average. So ang ito pong is nagre-represent po siya ng equal because the average weight loss for sample of people who exercise 30 minutes per day for 6 weeks equal 8.2 pounds. So ito po ang 8.2 pounds. Ito po ang null hypothesis. So the null hypothesis, the mean or U is equal to 8.2 pounds, and the alternative hypothesis, which is U or mean, is not equal 8.2 pounds. So that's all po for exercises number 1. Sa exercises number 2 po, hypothesis testing about single proportion. So, online learning developer claims that 90% of ABC college students have internet access at home. Would you agree if in a random survey of 200 students, only 160 have home access to internet? Don't you think the estimate is too high? Test at A is equal to 0.05 level of significance. So, step 1, the hypothesis, null hypothesis, P is equal to 90%. The alternative hypothesis, P is not equal to 90%. Step 2 po, A is equal to 0.05. Sa step 3, two-tailed test is used because we used equal in the claim. Sa step 4, the tabular value or critical value of Z at 0.05 level of significance is positive or negative 1.96. Sa step 5, compute the Z value. So ito po siya, P is equal to 160 over 200 is equal to 0.8. 90% minus 0.9 is equal to N is equal to 200. The Z value, Z is equal to P minus P over the square root of P, the quantity of 1 minus P over N. So 0.8 minus 0.9 over square root of 0.9, the quantity of 1 minus 0.9 over 200. So equal to negative 4.71. Step 6, the computed value of Z minus 4, Z minus 4.71, which is less than that the tabular value or critical value Z is equal to negative 1.96 and it falls in the rejection region in the left tail. Therefore, rejected the null hypothesis and accept the alternative hypothesis. And the last step, number 7, therefore, the average of 160 students who have home access to internet is not too high. So that's all po for lesson 2 activity. So sa exercises 4.1 po sa lesson 4, the parametric test, two groups of experimental rats are injected with tranquilizer at 1.0 mg and 1.5 mg dose, respectively. The time given in seconds that took them to fall asleep is hereby given. Use the t-test for independent sample at 0.01 to test the null hypothesis that the difference is thus in dosage has no effect on the length of time it took them to fall asleep. So the 1 mg dose, which is 9.8 to 9.7, the 1.5 mg dose, 12.0 up to 13.5. Okay, so the 1.0 mg dose, to get this 96.04, pinag-multiply po namin ito, 9.8 times 9.8 is equal to 96.04. So, yan po ang pasunod-sunod na ginawa namin hanggang sa 9.7 times 9.7 is equal to 94.09. The same po sa 1.5 mg dose dito po sa group 2. 12.0 times 12.0 is equal to 144. So in group 1, the summation of x sub 1 is equal to 118.7. The number of observation in group 1, which is 11, and the x sub 1 is equal to 10.79. So dito po, the summation of this is equal to 1,309.25. Sa group 2 po, is equal to 100. The number of observation in group 2, 9, and equal to 11.11. So, equal po in this group, which is 1,140.84. So, the SS1 po, which is the sum of square of group 1. Ito po yung formula. And equal to 1,000 because of this 1,309.25 minus 108 118.7 raised to 2 over 11 and equal to 1,309.25 minus 1,280.88, which is the number of observation in group 1 is equal to 28.37. Same procedure in SS2, the number of observation in group 2. The answer, the total answer in SS2, SS2 po ito, is equal to 29.73. So, and the t-test, so here's the formula, is equal to 10.79 minus 11.11 over the square root of 28.37 plus 29.73 over 11 plus 9 minus 2 times 1 over 11 plus 1 over 9 is equal to negative 0.32 over the square root of 58.1 over 18 times 1.09 plus 0.11 is equal to negative 0.32 over square root of 3.22 times 0.2. So that the t-test is equal to minus negative 0.398 or negative 0.40. In solving by the stepwise method, problem 1, is there significant effect between the dosage and the length of time it took them to fall asleep? hypothesis. In step 2, the null hypothesis, there is no significant effect between the dosage and the length of time it took them to fall asleep. So, null hypothesis, x sub 1 is equal to x sub 2. And alternative hypothesis, there is a significant effect between the dosage and the length of time it took them to fall asleep. So, the alternative hypothesis, x sub 1 is not equal to x sub 2. So, the level of significance, A is equal to 0.05. The DF or degree of freedom, uh, ito po yung formula, is equal to 11 plus 9 minus 2 is equal to 18. So the uh, T test value of 0.05 is equal to 2.101, or the tabular at 0.05. The step number 4, statistic t-test for independent samples. So ito na po siya. Ito po yun. And then sa step 5, decision rule. If the t computed value is lesser than or beyond t tabular or critical value, accept the null hypothesis. In conclusion, since the t computed value of negative 0.398 or the negative 0.40 is lesser than t tabular value of 2.101 at 0.05 level of significance, the null hypothesis is accepted. Significant effect between the dosage and the length of time it took the rats fall asleep. So, exercise 4.2 po. Ate Shine po.
Exercise 4.2. Problem. 10 subjects were given an attitude test on a controversial issue. Then they were shown a film favorable to the 10 subjects and the same attitude test was administered. Make a directional test at A is equal to 0.05. The pre-test and the post-test po na data is 16, 18, 16, 24, 20, 25, 22, 18, 15, and 15. Sa post-test naman po, 20, 20, 24, 28, 20, 30, 23, 24, 19, and 15. Sa third column po, yung difference po ng pre-test and post-test, which is 16 minus 20 is negative 4. And the squared po ng negative 4 is positive 16. Ang difference naman po ng pre-test ng 18 and 20 is negative 4. Ang squared po is 4. 16 minus 24 po is negative 8. Ang squared po ng negative 8 is positive 64. 24 minus 28 is negative 4. The square root po is 16. 20 minus 20 po is 0. So, 0 din po yung squared niya. 20 minus 30 is negative 5. Ang squared po is 25. 22 minus 23 is negative 1. The squared po is positive 1. 18 minus 24 is negative 6. Positive 36 po ang squared niya. 15 minus 19 is negative 4. And the squared po is positive 16. 15 minus 15 is 0. So, 0 din po yung squared niya. Ang total po ang summation po nitong difference ng pre-test and post-test is negative 34. Divided by 10 para po makuha yung mean po ng difference ng pre-test and post-test, which is negative 3.4. And the summation po of difference, squared ng difference is 178. Solution po, t is equal to mean of difference over the square root of summation of d squared minus the summation of d squared over n all over n, the quantity of n minus 1. Substitute the value equals negative 3.4 over the square root of 178 minus negative 3.4 squared over 10 all over 10 times 10 minus 1 equals negative 3.4 over the square root of 178 minus 115.6 all over 10 times 9 equals negative 3.4 square root of 62.4 over 90 equals negative 3.4 over the square root of 0.69333 equals negative 3.4 over 0.8326663998 or negative 3.4 over 0.8327. And the result is negative 4.08. The problem is there is a significant difference between the pretest and post-test on a controversial issue. Number 2, hypothesis. The null hypothesis, there is no significant difference between the pretest and post-test on a controversial issue when they shown a film favorable to the 10 subject and the same aptitude test was administered. And the alternative hypothesis, the post-test result is higher than the pre-test result. Level of significance. A is equal to 0.05. DF is equal to n minus 1. Equals 10 minus 1 is equal to 9. The t.05 is equal to 2.262. Statistics. T-test for correlated sample. Decision rule. If the t computed value is greater than or beyond the critical value, reject the null hypothesis. Conclusion. The computed value of negative 4.08 is beyond the critical value of 2.262 at 0.05 level of significance with 9 degree of freedom. The null hypothesis is therefore rejected in favor of the research hypothesis. This means that the post-test result is higher than the pre-test result. It implies that the aptitude test on a controversial issue were shown a film favorable to the 10 subjects and the same aptitude test was effective.
So for exercise 4.3, the problem is a school principal in a laboratory school claimed that the reading comprehension test of grade 6 pupils should have an average of 72.3 with a standard deviation of 7.8. If 50 randomly selected grade 6 pupils have an average of 76.7, test the claim at 0.05 level of significance. So x is equals to 76.7, hypothesis mean is equals to 72.3, standard deviation is equals to 7.8, sample size is equals to 50. So the formula to get the z-test value is equals to mean minus hypothesis mean all over standard deviation over the square root of n is equals to 76.7 minus 72.3 all over 7.8 over the square root of 50 is equals to 4.4 all over 7.8 over 7.07. So we get the z-test value will be 3.99 or 4. Problem: the claim that the reading comprehension test of grade 6 pupil with 50 randomly selected by the school principal in a laboratory. Hypothesis: a school principal in a laboratory school claimed that the reading comprehension test of grade 6 pupils should have an average of 72.3 with a standard deviation of 7.8. So the null hypothesis will be the test of grade 6 pupils average is 72.3. And the alternative hypothesis is the test of grade 6 pupils average not not equal to 72.3. Third, level of significance is equal to 0.05. Z Z of 0.05 is equals to 1.96. Statistics, z-test for one-tailed test. Decision rule, if the computed value z-score is greater than or beyond the critical value z-tabular, then reject the null hypothesis. Accept alternative, alternative hypothesis on research hypothesis. Conclusion, since the computed z-value of 3.99 or 4 is beyond the critical z-value of positive or negative 1.96 at 0.05 level of significance, reject null hypothesis. It means there is a, there is a significant difference on claim that the reading comprehension test of grade 6 pupils of 50 randomly selected by the school principal and a laboratory. For exercise number 4, the problem is there a significant difference between the average height of males born from two different countries? A random samples yielded the following results. Sample size of group 1 is equals to 100. Sample size of group 2 is equals to 120. Mean of group 1 is equals to 63.8. Mean of group 2 is equals to 63.1. Standard deviation for group 1 is equals to 2.58. Standard deviation for group 2 is equals to 2.62. Use the z-test at 0.05 level of significance to test the null hypothesis that the corresponding population means are equal against the alternative hypothesis that they are not equal. Problem, is there a significant difference between the average height of males born from the two different countries? Hypothesis, the null hypothesis, mean of group 1 is equals to mean of group 2. Alternative hypothesis, mean of group 1 is not equal to mean of group 2. Level of significance, A is equals to 0.05, Z is equals to positive or negative 1.96. Statistics, z-test for two-tailed test. To get the z-test value, the formula is equal to mean 1 minus mean 2 all over the square root of s of 1 squared plus s of 1 squared minus n of 1 plus s of 2 squared over n of 2 is equal to 63.8 minus 63.1 all over the square root of 2.58 over 100 plus 2.62 over 120 is equals to 0.7 all over the square root of 1,429 over 3,000 is equal to 0.7 all over the square root of 0.048 is equal to 0.7 all over 0.2.19. The z-test value is equal to 3.19 196. Decision rule. If the z computed value is greater than the z tabular value, reject the null hypothesis. Conclusion. Since the z Since the z computed value of 3.196 is greater than the level of significance, the research hypothesis is accepted, which means is there significance difference between the average height of males born from the two different countries. That's all po. Thank you.